Hello everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Now let's start today's topic. Through some recent episodes, I have shared with you many reasons why I believe freedom is an important foundation for us to be happy. Each of us must find our own definition of freedom from which we can find happiness, and in the question of whether money can buy happiness or not, I also share with you the definition about my own freedom. And if you remember, in my definition there is an important piece of the puzzle. The freedom to go anywhere and live in any country I want. After I posted that episode, quite a few people messaged me asking questions and wanting me to share a little more about this. So in today's episode, I want to share with you guys a little more deeply about the reason why the freedom to travel and live anywhere is an important piece of the puzzle. In my definition of freedom. To start, let me introduce you to a story that seems unrelated to the topic we are talking about. That is, I have a very big passion, and I have pursued this passion for quite a long time, more than 20 years now, and that is the passion for photography. I still remember that time around 2006-2007, I don't remember clearly. That was the first time I went with some friends from the Photography Association to Dom Thap to take a set of photos of red-crowned cranes. Before that trip, I did a little research about the cranes I was going to photograph, and I learned that they originated from very distant countries in the northern hemisphere, and in the winter they migrated south to winter hide. And when winter ends in those countries, which means around May to June of the following year, it will fly back to its original place. After returning home from that trip, I started to have a bit more hopeless thoughts. It started from the thought that I wish I could be like that crane, I could go live anywhere I want. Before I continue, I want to say that in today's episode I'm going to say some ideas that might sound unfamiliar to some of you because it's a little different from what you're used to so far, so I hope you'll accept these ideas, which I share, with the most open minds possible. Then returning to my thoughts after the trip to photograph red-crowned cranes in Dong Thap. At first I thought the thought was just a passing thought, but for some reason it remained forever in my thoughts. Then from those thoughts I began to dig deeper, and gradually I realized that when we are born, whether we like it or not, we are also stuck with a number of labels. Labels like, we are Asians, we were born in a place called Vietnam, and gradually, more or less, whether we like it or not, and we are also locked into one way of thinking and thinking. Life and ways of behaving have been predetermined, and similarly all those things that you are born in other countries on other continents, and then just like that we grow up with those things and naturally let it affect our thoughts and actions. We automatically accept it as truth, and not many people ask why. For me, from the moment I asked myself the question, why does it have to be like that? It's like an alarm bell for me. I suddenly realized that I don't have to live like that. I realized that I can design my life any way I want. I don't necessarily have to follow a path or a pre-existing set of rules set by someone in advance. Then from there I asked myself a series of why questions, and among those why questions, there was one question. Why do I have to ask if I want to go to another place in the world? All types of documents are allowed. Why let your travel be limited by a book that people call a passport? Why am I limited to a border drawn by a certain group of people from ancient times who created it with the original purpose of dividing people who are similar to them from those who are not? They let them gather people who think like them together. And instead of learning the differences and finding good things from those differences, they pump into each other's heads the idea that those different people are enemies, and from there it leads to wars and so on for thousands of years, generations after generations. Children and grandchildren grow up and are caught up in those conflicts. Slowly the division deepens and the borders are drawn. Then it changed up and down as a result of meaningless wars. Then it fenced us in that invisible border, and the more we learn about the roots of everything, the more we see that it is unreasonable because from a biological perspective, the genome of us humans and monkeys is only 0.1% different. That's between humans and monkeys, and between peoples around the world, that percentage is different. It is much lower, yet in just a short period of thousands of years of development, we have divided ourselves horribly. We are divided by skin color, continent, country, ethnicity. These divisions do not come from a biological perspective, but rather come from the mindset of people with each other. And when we think about this division, we will see how little benefit it has. It has advantages, not none, but very few, and its disadvantages are countless. The first thing that is most obvious is that when we have borders, we will automatically gradually form them. So some comparisons, then that comparison gradually grows into a distinction, and slowly it creates hatred for each other. On a small scale it means hating each other, On a slightly larger scale it means fighting, and the most terrible scale is war. You look like this, I look like that. You believe this, I believe. Instead of finding common ground and respecting differences, people solve it by killing each other. The idea I just said came from General Norman Schwarzkopf, a general that I admire very much. In an interview, he said a sentence with the same verbatim content as this: "War's a profanity because, let's face it, you've got two opposing sides trying to settle their differences by killing as many of each other as they can. That is the first harm of division. The second harm comes from within us in our daily lives. This division will cause us to just hang around the things that people who are similar to us, and it will limit us from opening our minds to new things. Things that are contrary to the things we are familiar with. But that is the way for us to develop quickly. This is also the reason that from the first years of coming to Australia, I decided that I would not live in this area. Vietnamese people, although I really like the Vietnamese area, every time I visit the Vietnamese area, I am very happy and feel comfortable as if I am coming home. But thanks to the decision to not live in the Vietnamese area, I have the opportunity to interact with many other individuals, meet, work together and make many friends in a world of hearing and experiencing countless different activities. With them, from there I learned many new things and different cultures. Our people have a very good saying, integrate but don't dissolve, and I use it as a tool when I go abroad to work and interact with other friends around the world. Listen and learn to absorb the good things of them and vice versa. I also share with them the good things of my country, the place where I was born and raised. It helps me expand my vision very much. A lot, and I think it also helps my friends understand more about our people. On the contrary, I have also encountered many cases of some people who have moved to Australia, to a new country, instead of taking advantage of the opportunity to gain access to different cultures to expand their horizons. From my perspective, you choose to live in your comfort zone, that is, you live in your community and you live your daily life no different from those who live in your hometown. You miss out. Going is a very big opportunity to come into contact with other cultures and approach new things in the world, and often these people in their heads only know their own country, and that is easy. Leads to extremes, not only in our country, but also in other people's. When we only know one country, when our knowledge is limited, we will think we are the best, which is exactly what we do. The foundation of extremism is never a good thing. It's like the example of the park of life that I've used a few times in previous conversations. Imagining that we step into a large park, and instead of exploring the entire park, we just walk in. We immediately assigned ourselves some labels and decided we had to hang around in certain areas, play with certain people, and boycott all other games. So instead of experiencing the entire park, at the end of the day when you step out of the park, you only know the corner, the place where you joined and hung around to play a few games. There are many other examples of the harm of division, but just through these few examples we will see that it is this partial thinking that limits life. Our world is very large and the time we visit it is not much, so why don't we experience as much as possible all the aspects it offers us? But as soon as we enter the door, we immediately label ourselves and let those labels limit us. Therefore, through this number, I hope that especially young people, please continue to boldly walk through those challenges. That limit, of course I know the border will still be there, and it may be a long time before these borders end, but I believe that at some point it will disappear. The evidence is that you can see that for thousands of years, Europeans have been fighting each other wildly. Yet the concept of border has become very blurred. Therefore, I believe that at some point, when humanity develops at a certain level, borders will no longer exist. Maybe new borders can be planets together. However, I know that there is also a reality that we will certainly not see that seen in this lifetime. The borders will certainly still exist for at least another few hundred years. So instead of waiting or blaming those reasons, we don't allow ourselves to open our eyes. Instead, we should proactively change ourselves, so that we can live a free life according to our will. All of these changes start from a change in our mindset. Then we can certainly find a solution to another barrier. Take a direct example from my case. Once I formed a mindset and a goal, I started to come up with solutions to other barriers such as passports, for example. As I shared in the previous episode, the way I chose is to have a few more citizenships so that I can continue to travel more freely and easily in addition to my Australian citizenship in the near future. I will have a third nationality, so with the 3 nationalities I have chosen, I can basically go anywhere in the world I want without having to ask anyone's permission. In addition, I also equip myself with professional knowledge, experience and work reputation so that when needed, I can find a company or organization that is willing to sponsor my documents. And finally, the financial freedom journey that I shared with you guys before. Thanks to the financial freedom journey, it will ensure that I have a guaranteed income so that I can rest assured that no matter where I am, I can still live. That is the way I have prepared for myself to overcome the barriers in the current world to live the free life I want. Now when someone asks me which country I consider my home, I often answer them as my home. Now this whole world here will also be my home. There will be different houses. If I have more love for Vietnam or Australia, I will visit those houses more often than other houses, but I no longer define home as a certain place anymore. My picture of freedom is almost like the cranes I shared at the beginning of today's talk. I will have a few nests that I like to visit. For example, in the spring, I fly back to Australia because spring in Australia is very beautiful. When Australia has summer, I fly back to Vietnam to celebrate Tet to enjoy the chilly air. Tet season in Saigon. Then when it's summer in Vietnam, I'll fly to America, for example, and when fall comes, I'll fly to Europe to enjoy the fall in Europe. My goal is that one day I can go to the airport and fly to different countries without having to carry luggage. I just go without going to the airport. At best I bring my laptop bag. When I got there, I took the car back to my nest and it seemed like I had arrived home. This painting is not finished yet. I am still on the journey to build my nests in places I like. I don't share these things to brag. Because actually, I haven't finished building yet, so there's nothing to brag about. The reason I share this picture with you is because I think it will create inspiration for you, and from there you will have more motivation to have a better life. Freedom. We see the world as our home. We step out into the world. It doesn't mean we turn our back on the place where we were born. Those of you who have followed me before will know that I spend a lot of love for Vietnam, especially for Saigon, the place where I was born and raised until now, and I think forever after. Vietnam will always have a very special position in my mind. My thoughts. I think I'm a pretty sentimental person, but I also think that everyone, not just me, has more or less affection for the places where we were born and lived, especially when that place is I was born and raised in my hometown, and I always want good things for my homeland. And I also want to encourage you to do the same thing. Let's love the place where we were born and cherish the places where we grew up, but don't let that limit us. We are very lucky to be born in the modern world. Thanks to technology and techniques, now our footsteps can go anywhere we want in the world. Our vision is our eyes can see farther, so there is no reason for us to limit our vision to just hanging around the place where we were born. Let's fly very high and far away. Because I believe that if we had to choose, our homeland would also choose to proudly fly high and far instead of keeping our child in one place where he was born, grew up and died just around the corner. Behind the village bamboo fence. To conclude today's talk, I want to share with you this picture. This is a picture taken by the 5 Voyager 1 spacecraft in February 1990. At that time NASA engineers pointed the spacecraft's camera towards the Earth to take this picture before it left the solar system when taking this picture. The distance between the spacecraft and the Earth is about 6.1 billion kilometers, a very far distance in that image. Then at the arrow I put you will see a very small blue dot. It is just pixels, and that is our Earth. Then a few years later in 1994, in a book called Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan, an American astronomer, he rewrote a very famous passage and it left a very strong impression. For me personally, for most people who know this book, the original text is like this: look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's US on it. Everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. I am a minimalist, but usually there is not much decoration on my desk, and this is the only picture I use for decoration. I often leave it on my desk as a way to remind myself that I am very small and the time I exist in this world is just like a split second, so I must try to live to the fullest every moment I have without letting anything happen. There's no limit to my thoughts and actions as long as it brings happiness to myself and it doesn't harm others. And in today's episode, I give you this gift. This picture hopes it will also bring positive things to you and your friends like it did to me. The content I share in today's episode may sound a bit big, but it is very valuable to me. It is a very important piece in the development journey. Therefore, I personally hope that it will bring benefits to the upcoming journey for you and your friends. If not, at least I hope it gives you a new perspective. If you find this content useful, please share it with your friends. First of all, I recently discovered that we are YouTube and they will prioritize videos with a lot of likes, so if you like it, please click on the like button for this video so that more people know about our podcast. Thank you for your following and wish you a happy and joyful day.